Would you care to say your name and spell it for us?
David Diffine. You look at her saying?
Yes.
I'll start.
Fine.
David Diffine, spelled Diffine.
Tell us what's going on. I want to start by giving you the floor.
Well, currently my license is suspended from a complaint that was sent to the medical board on July 17th of 2024. The suspension was in October. My hearing is coming up shortly, and there were several allegations made based off of the video. And the video was released publicly by the Arkansas State Medical Board, and it's been spread all over the world at this point. And there's a lot of misinformation in attached to the video, mischaracterization of what happened, and that video that was contained a complaint was a product of revenge porn. So we're trying to rectify that on the back end, as well as dealing with any potential Practice Act violations with the medical board.
Will you discuss the content of the video with us? What was the context behind it?
The video contained some scenes of me and 3 women after hours at my office, which was also my apartment. I lived there part-time. This was a particular night that I was staying there. I won't go into more specifics of who and what. The video was captured on security camera. It was sent to my phone because of the security camera, and the videos were never sent or copied to anyone from my phone. I was the only one that had those videos until they showed up at the medical board in July.
We've discussed the ramifications right now for you. Your license is suspended. Have you heard from any of the women who were in the video about how this may have affected them negatively?
I have. One of the women will be testifying at my hearing. The only negative impact was not from the original situation 6 years ago. It was from the publicization of the video that easily identified these women, even with the blur and everything else on the videos. Anybody that was ever a patient at our office or been in our office, could figure out who they were. And so there's been a lot of negative impact on the women that were in the video as well.
So tell me the circumstances of how these videos got leaked. Tell me about what happened there.
I didn't know at first. I didn't know until October, after the suspension, when we got the packet from the medical board, what the complaints were, who it might have been from, and there was 2 separate complaints that were both anonymous, pretending to be 2 different people, both making allegations, grossly wild allegations about things in my office. And attached to them were both copies of 18 video clips that were from, I believe it was July 9th, is when the date was, from 2019. Both complaints, they mentioned similar things about my lawyer and some other aspects that make it obvious it's the same person or people in communication with each other, because they both made some wrong statements about my lawyer and who he is, what my role is. So it was, and besides the copies of the videos, it's clear it was the same person. The date of the complaints, ironically, at first, and when I was trying to figure out where this might have come from, was the same date that an ex-girlfriend of mine, Allegra Melton, I think her name's Millicent now, had reached out to me about coming back to Jonesboro and getting back with me. She was leaving the guy that she's now married to, that she had left me to be with back in February of 23. I haven't seen her since February of 23. But she had reached out and was talking about coming back, and I told her I'd already met somebody else just recently, and I kind of want to see that through. And you know, if something didn't work out, maybe we could talk. She got very upset. Called me probably 30 times that afternoon while I was seeing patients. I couldn't talk to her on the phone. Blew my phone up with texts and made some veiled threats about my karma and how this was going to, you know, when my karma came back on me, it was my own fault and all this kind of stuff. I didn't know she had the videos. I never gave them to her. The videos were from before we ever even met. But at that time, I pretty much knew who was behind this and why. We filed a police report not long after with JPD for revenge porn, which is a state and federal law or crime. And the city attorney did not take the case. She said something flippant to my lawyer about, you know, I deserved it and didn't want to pursue the case. Once Trump has to Take It Down Act, which was in, I think, April or May, which basically states if there is non-consensual intimate material out there, non-consensual meaning someone has it without your consent, not that it was something, doesn't refer to the consent of the actual event, that you can notify the media outlet or internet, whatever, whoever has it posted publicly that it's revenge porn, and they have 48 hours to take it down according to the Take It Down Act. If they don't take it down, there's daily penalties. It's a federal crime now. So invoking the Take It Down Act, we sent a packet out to KIT News in June, identifying those videos as revenge porn, included a copy of the police report. We also notified the state medical board and sent them a copy of that as well. And that was about 4 weeks ago. My lawyers said they said something back about, you know, they had got it, that they disagreed basically with what the content represented. And this material was never given or sent to anybody. It was only on my phone. In the last 3 weeks, I found an old text message from Allegra with a screenshot of that video that was from 2022 that confirmed she had those videos in her possession. I had forgotten that she'd sent that. There was something else going on at the time we were fighting about, and she'd sent several pictures of stuff at that time, and I guess I just hadn't paid attention to that. But I found it going back through my thing. So I now have proof that it was in fact her who had those videos. The medical board ultimately knows who had them because they have the email addresses of the complainants. However, they consider it anonymous, so they have not shared that with us. And in my opinion, it's aiding and abetting a criminal act because of what happened. So I'd like to, you know, I'd like for the state, the city, whoever to you know, prosecute this as revenge porn as they should, and you know, take action because this was a crime.
Do you think, dependent on how things go at your hearing next week, you may have more of a case here with the city to push this a little bit further?
That shouldn't matter. I mean, my case of the medical board is more of who, what, and where, rather than the material content of here's this video we have that, you know, that solidifies this thing happening. And they could have investigated this, you know, the same way. They could have looked in the same way. Releasing the video to the public was unnecessary officially, and a violation of the Freedom of Information Act in Arkansas because it's still an open investigation, and by law they're not allowed to release information about a case until the case is closed. My suspension was a suspension in lieu of a hearing, pending a hearing, a disciplinary hearing, which has not happened yet. So this is not a closed case. So it should never been released, and now that we've identified it as revenge porn, it's just another reason it shouldn't be out there. And so my goal is to get the video cleaned up, get it out if it's even possible. I know it's going to go all the way, and it already has, but I have legal rights regardless of who, what, when, and where, because it was private information. It was shot in privacy of my own, quote, home, an after hours apartment that I had. And I am entitled to privacy from that aspect of it.
So how does that process work when a complaint is made to the medical board?
So typically, when you get a complaint to the medical board, they're required to investigate all complaints. It's their duty to serve the public. And so all complaints are investigated to some degree. Since this happened, I know that someone complained to the medical board anonymously again about the Rocky the Ridge Point rooster in my yard. Actually complained to the board. To my knowledge, that wasn't investigated because I never got asked about anything like that. But it was in my board file, ironically. But typically, they investigate any complaints because they're required to, and they will notify you that you had a complaint. They'll notify you who and what and where, unless it's anonymous, and they'll just send you the complaint. And then they ask you to respond to it. You typically have a time frame of 20, 30 days. And then when they get the response back, they'll take the complaint response and they'll discuss it at the next board meeting. That's typically what happens. The reason that's an issue is, and like in this case, if they think something is emergent and rises to the level of immediate action, and that they have to just establish that there's a public threat and a harm to the public, then they can do something immediately. They can take action in lieu of a hearing, not send you the complaint, not let you respond to it, and just kind of leave you in the dark. So you find out after the fact, like what's going on and why. But typically they're only allowed to skip those processes if there's an emergent need to pull a licensee out of the public population. And if a complaint is resolved without disciplinary action, it's not subject to the Freedom of Information Act according to Arkansas's bylaws. And one of my issues was with my Naturism complaint that was sent in February of 2024. I know that someone reached out to Macy Davis at KIT by email and notified them that the complaint exists. And she'd reached out to me wanting to talk about the complaint the day after I had sent my response in. And the knowledge of the complaint and the response should have been only known by the board, and the board hadn't even had a chance to look at it yet. But they had a copy of KIT. And that would be a violation of the Freedom of Information Act, and also raised concerns with me that the information is being leaked to the local news media illegally and behind the scenes. And that complaint was resolved without any disciplinary action, so that complaint should have never been open for public disclosure. So that's why they have those rules, because if they get resolved, every whim and complaint that comes in isn't open to the public, because some of them are ridiculous and are, have no merit, and I'm sure the board members themselves, who also have complaints, don't want everything aired in the public that comes in no matter what. So there is some sifting of the complaints, resolving the complaints, acting on the complaints before they're made public. And in a lot of states, the complaints aren't ever made public. Arkansas is a little bit different than that. And Arkansas is one of the few states that has an emergency suspension mechanism. Most states do not have that either. They have to do due process before they take action on their license. But Arkansas and I think 2 other states have a act first, investigate later process for extreme cases. But it's used quite frequently in Arkansas. And as in my case 7 years ago, it was used for an allegation that I was proven innocent of. So, and it was quite damaging. It does a lot of financial damage and reputation damage that can't be undone, even if you didn't do anything wrong.
So the videos that had been released had nothing to do with the videos from your office have nothing to do with nature's activities.
Nothing, no, not at all. No, Naturism is a religious, a spiritual belief, basically, that it comes as a lot of things like diet and stuff, like, and the way you live. But it's a spiritual belief that basically we're our most true selves when we're stripped of everything, basically, which includes clothes. And so it's based heavily on communal activity with other naturists in our natural setting, natural state. So it's a social thing with people that's deprived, that's stripped of all the masks and the pretensions and all the stuff that go on. And it's a very liberating, freeing, self-acceptance kind of thing. This is me, and I'm just me, and
right.
People accept you for that, and You accept other people for that. It's not a voyeuristic thing. It's not an exhibitionistic thing, and it's not a sexual thing. There's a governing body in America called the American Association of Nude Recreation that governs all naturist resorts. They have strict policies about sexual activity and stuff at these places, so it's not a sexual thing at all. And so if someone is doing something sexual, they're not doing something naturist. It's no different than someone's doing something sexual and saying, I'm doing something Christian.
Mm-hmm.
You could be doing that within your Christian beliefs, right? But it's not,
It's not.
it's not a celebration of your Christian faith, right? So naturism is not a sexual thing. Of course, naturists have sex, and depending on where they are when it happens, they may already have their clothes off for some reason, but it's not designed to be a sexual thing, and the connotation is entirely different. Nature is about consent, respect, acceptance, seeing people for who they are, not objectifying people, not sexualizing people. It's a more pure thing of seeing people for who they really are. So it's confusing that with any kind of sexual activity it's like black and white. It's not related at all.
Two separate
Totally separate
sides of the
Totally
scenario.
separate.
So
Yeah.
the videos from 2019 are just your sexual life that got leaked out.
Yes.
eventually.
Yes, 100%. That was a sexual activity, and not naturist in any definition at all.
Okay.
So it's a clear distinction.
Do you think the naturist aspect was maybe used to make it a little more acceptable to push those videos out into the public by the bad actors?
100%. And there's a lot of misunderstanding of what naturism, and a lot of people confuse like naturism with like swinging or lifestyle, right? So most of those people aren't naturists. They don't believe in that part, and a lot of people get those confused. Like someone likes to be naked. Maybe there's lifestyle is a heavily sexually driven thing. It's not a spiritual belief. It's a very hedonistic thing, and some of the lifestyle places allow you to not wear clothes, but it's not driven as a naturist thing. It's a highly charged sexual environment, and it's a totally different lifestyle than naturism. And not to my knowledge, there's not a spiritual aspect to that. It's just a free-for-all sexual thing that some people do. It's more of I guess it's a sexual choice, and not associated with naturism or nudity itself in any kind of way. So a lot of people confuse those. So I think with this case where I'm naked and the sexual activity happens, I mean most people are naked when sexual activity happens, right? But like it's because of that history that it got associated. But I think to a degree there's a lot of discrimination and misunderstanding about what naturism is, and so like naturism is something you do in the privacy of your own home or places where it's legally allowed or places like that. It's not something that we push or advocate for people doing in unacceptable places, and it's not something we force others to do. So it's a very private kind of thing, and it's not. We promote it publicly so people understand what it's about, but it's not something we endorse people just if you believe in just forcing your nudity on other people. It's not about that at all. And so I think some of these things get confused. People have no understanding about it. And yeah, I think it got taken out of context, and I think there's a lot of discrimination in that. I think when people hear you're a naturist, they're like, oh my God, I'm like, we were all born that way. I mean, Adam and Eve were naturists until they sinned, and then they had pride and shame, and then they covered themselves up because they felt inferior to God. And there's a whole segment of people who are Christian naturists and I'm kind of that, I guess. But I would say people who have the Christian New Testament Christianity beliefs that they merge with the naturism as well, and so it's like this is how we were made, and it's a pure non-sexual, non-objectification thing, and it's a really wonderful thing for women who've been sexually traumatized, or whatever, because they get their autonomy back, and it's their body, their rules, they own it, they say when and what and how. It's something else, and they get their autonomy back, and they get people respect that, and it's all about consent, and so it's a very healing thing especially for women and men, but who have been sexually traumatized. So it's a very powerful, very genuine, authentic thing. So it's not a sexual thing.
Is it legal in Arkansas?
So Arkansas has a rule from the 1950s that was put in place by this charismatic preacher from Oklahoma who went around several states trying to get nudity outlawed. So there is a law in the books that defines naturism as any two people being naked together of the opposite sex who are not married. Definitely not what naturism is. Definitely makes about 90% of the state naturist. Because if you're naked with a girlfriend or a fiance or anybody that's not your spouse, then it's illegal. It does allow for you to be naked in front of someone of the same sex, which is why the natural springs, hot baths and hot springs are legal, because they're segregated in same sex. Otherwise, that would be illegal. But mixed sex nudity in front of each other is illegal in Arkansas. The American Association of New Recreation is trying to challenge that. They've been told there's no reason to challenge it. We're not enforcing the law. We're enforcing that law, and until they actually enforce the law on someone, you can't challenge that law in court. And so we actually have former law enforcement officers from the state of Arkansas who are naturists outside the state who have tried to get this challenged and stuff just to get it done, because it's clearly an outdated law and clearly poorly defined, and it still sits. So it's officially why there's no Anner resorts in Arkansas, because of that technicality of that.
So you had this complaint last February about the naturist activities, and then came, and I know he was there before the complaint was filed, but then came Rocky the Ridgepoint Rooster.
That was a funny thing. It was just a joke, started out, and then it became this just like, this kind of crusade, I guess, to be like,
Save Rocky.
Well, it was a silly thing because they were stressing out over a bush that I didn't even plant that had been there off of the years, and so it turns out, I found out after all this that they can approve what goes in, but they can't make you take the bushes and stuff out. So I just did that. I was told I had to, but I did it out of my goodwill. It turns out I didn't have to actually get rid of that bush. So Rocky went up as a joke, and it was only going to be a temporary, thing. And then it got turned into such a big deal, on both sides. People rooting for it, and people, against it for some reason. And so, he stayed up. We had fun with that, and I promised the two HOA members who were upset the entire time. I told them, I said, I'll take it down at Labor Day. I said, I'm like, it's not, we're just having fun, and it wasn't in violation of any HOA policies. There was nothing which was part of their problem, and I assumed they would create some, as quickly as they could, but it never happened.
Where's Rocky now?
He is in the garage.
You think he'll come back out?
Or
are you tired of that attention?
Well, in the context of everything going on, it was unfortunate that it got that attention prior to a complaint like this, because they just springboarded, right? So I kind of wished I'd been more anonymous at that point. It was harmless fun, and there's times I wanted to put him back out.
So you're licensed in another state, and I know we're not going to discuss that, but do you still practice right now?
I'm not currently practicing right now.
Okay.
No, there has been issues with applying for jobs related to, I'm overqualified for jobs, and they Google and this video that's out there. So that's part of our reason. Even if I don't get my medical license back, I still have to deal with the fact that that's out there for, if I end up working full time in another career. And so that's my concern. This is illegal. It's revenge porn. It shouldn't be out there. There's mechanisms to get it taken down. We've employed those. We filed a complaint with the FTC. Haven't heard back from that. So it's like, if these laws are real laws, and they're meant to protect these situations from happening. It's one thing to investigate and say, hey, you did something wrong or something, but there's laws to protect this type of thing where you put private information all over the world in the internet, misrepresent it, and you know it causes real life effect and damages to people that you just can't undo. So that, you know, if there's anything we can do to minimize that, then you know, we're going to try to do that. Just it's two separate things. What the issues with the Medical Practice Act, and then this classless attempt to try to make someone look worse than possible. You know, so
You hear people use the term ruin someone's life. Do you think that's what someone was trying to do to you, and did they?
100% they were trying to, and I think she even mentioned that in the complaint, or the text message that were sent to me. I would say she ruined my life. She ruined my career. Been through a lot in the last year, done a lot of self work, and I'm actually a lot of peace right now with a lot of things. And so I'm in some sense, I do believe things happen for a reason, and I think for me personally, there's nothing but growth ahead. So, but financially, it's been devastating. I will probably have to file bankruptcy, and I lost, you know, the clinics that were very successful. I lost potentially my medicine career, and it's a shame because, you know, we had a lot of loyal patients who really loved us, and I've been doing this for 25 years in Northeast Arkansas, and you know, they were alleging that, like, I was running around seeing patients naked during office hours, you know, and I mean, how are you gonna do that? How are you gonna do that? People coming in and out of the office all day long and working in the same area for 25 years. How is that not gonna be a known thing if that was even possible to happen? And so the things that some people have said and believed out of this is just preposterous. I mean, so it's gotten really silly, but it's a shame. I mean, a lot of the patients were upset, and they had to be scattered to the wind. The clinics are closed now; they're shut down for good. You know, it's just a tragedy for a lot of people. Tragedy for the women in the video who, you know, their lives are undoubtedly ruined in some aspects from this. You know, I haven't been able to catch up with all of them about the details of that, but I can only imagine.
What does your support system look like these days?
It's very great, actually. I mean, the people that are around me know who I am and what I am and what I stand for, and they know what this was and what it wasn't, and they know who was behind it, and they a lot of them knew her, you know. So they, you know, it's not, you know, and so yeah, they've been very supportive, and you know, it's the public who doesn't know me sees this and decides this is something, right? This is, but my patients that saw me for 20 years, my employees, my family and friends, they're like, this is ridiculous, you know. I mean, and granted, it obviously looks bad, but it's mostly because it's taken completely out of context, and no one can tell you how something's going to turn out, because you know, I could lose everything, have to start over in another career, you know, which is sad and silly, I think, because of this, because it was just someone trying to get back at me for not taking them back. And if you wanted to come back to me, how could I be such a terrible person at the same time? And how could someone trust that person's opinion in a complaint?
So what does your gut tell you is going to happen at this point?
I don't know. A word on the street is they've already decided that they're going to take my license, and that's concerning because I haven't even had a hearing yet, and that shouldn't be how it works. But this is as much politics, I believe, as it is anything else. And you know, because the video being put out there and the public reaction that it got, and that I assume they wanted, they kind of fenced themselves in. I mean, if this wasn't what it looked like, now what do you do? Look stupid? Apologize? Blame somebody else? So I'm concerned that even if I make my case, that it may not matter because it's not a court of law. And they can decide to do whatever they want to do. And that's the scary thing with the licensing board is they have a lot of leadway and just basically creating rules. I have colleagues who have had felony convictions, and in the state of Arkansas, you can't have a medical license with a felony conviction. But they voted to overlook it. And so they can make case-by-case adjustments on things in pretty much any context. But they can also go the other direction. They can take your license when it's not something they have to do. Because there's nothing that says they have to take someone's license. There's remediation programs, there's monitoring programs, there's all kinds of programs that exist to rehabilitate a doctor that has any kind of issue, whether it's drugs, alcohol, any kind of thing. So they don't have to take somebody's license, but they can. So it's, what do they want to do? So it's very political. You can appeal it to a court of law, to circuit court, and then it becomes more legalistic in that sense. It's rarely done. It's cost prohibitive probably, and it has to be pretty egregious usually for them to step in. So yeah, it's tough because you can't go in saying, hey, I have a good feeling of how it's going to go, and especially when you're hearing people say that some decisions have already been made, and they don't know as much as I told you guys today because there hasn't been a way to tell them. I trust that God has a plan for me, and it'll work out how it needs to work out. But it's as far as what that's going to look like, I don't know.
So, what are your next steps? Would you go to another state and practice if that were to happen here in Arkansas? If they were to take your license?
It depends. A revocation, if they revoke my license, that's pretty damaging. Usually, any other states would reciprocate. They'd want you to either surrender your license or they would come try to take it, and then you would have to do the whole thing over again. Going through the case and telling them what happened and proving what happened and do the whole thing again. And it's state by state. And, I have some colleagues who have multi-state licenses doing telemedicine. They may have licenses in 47 states. And, something happens, they get a DUI or something, they have to defend that in 47 states, all at the same time, 47 sets of lawyers. And if any of them do anything, then that action gets pushed on to the next state, and then it all starts over again. Why did this state do that? And the whole process keeps going. It's like an echo. And so, the more state licenses you have, the more echo you have on that. And so, my other state license could go after my license, or they could say, we looked at it, we don't feel the same way about it. But you have to go through the expense and the process and everything of doing that again. If I get my license back, it would probably be under some type of monitoring arrangements and agreements, and like they typically do. They want to check in on you, and you sign contracts with the Arkansas Medical Foundation, and you jump through their hoops, and as long as you jump through those hoops, you're fine. Like in like my case, and this because it's been a while since the suspension. Because you don't have a license, you can't hold a DEA. You can't hold malpractice insurance. You can't be on any of the insurances. So everybody kicks you off, and then depending on what happens, you have to redo all that, which can take forever. If they've, in some cases like Medicare can say you're banned from Medicare. Well, I mean, I haven't even had a hearing, so like, it's those things happen in an emergency suspension process, and all that has to be undone after the fact. So it's really messy, it's really cumbersome. The end result is you're out for a while. And so it's financially devastating, of course, and mostly because of the emergency suspension process. If in other states they do this while you're working, you have the hearings, you do whatever else, and then and so you can pay for your lawyers, you
right.
take care of your patients, you can do all the things you need to do. And so, but in Arkansas and a few other states, like I said, they have the emergency suspension. So it's all chaos first, all facts later.
What are your next steps at this point?
Well, my hearings come up soon. We'll do that. that'll tell me, you know, what's going to happen in Arkansas, and then based on that, I'll decide, you know, whether I'm going to go change careers or try to, you know, crossovers. I mean, and deal with the, you know, the financial loose ends, everything, getting all that resolved, and go from there. I mean, it'll be ugly. It's been ugly, but it'll be ugly. But you know, we'll figure it out.
I want to go back real quick, and I want to give you the chance to explain to people who are going to be watching this who may have seen the, you know, some of the nature videos and pictures from Christmas and Halloween and Snow Day, and kind of explain what the thought process behind those was.
So I've been involved in naturism for 6-7 years. There's been a lot of like discussed in the naturist community about how to support and how to promote naturism, because like we can't invite people into the nature resorts just as tourists, you know, because of the sensitivity and privacy of that. And so being able to promote what it's about and how it is, it's there's been a push in the last few years to do more of that realistically, and with the, I guess, the laxer policies of Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, you're able to give a full representation of what this is about. Now, at a resort where there's multiple people, you have to get consent from everybody there to do anything, right? So it's very cumbersome. I actually worked as a news reporter for a naturist organization and covered events. So I actually was paid to do that for a while. Yeah, so I covered like conventions and cruises and different events and stuff for a while, and there's an outlet for that. It's a paid thing because again, the consent and all that kind of stuff. And so, but there was a push from some of the leaders in naturism to get more public awareness of naturism and like what it is and be more realistic about it. So that was part of the reason behind my naturist social media. Was I felt like if I was going to be actively involved in the leadership of naturism at some point, I kind of had to walk the walk, and I couldn't be like, hey, you know, we need to get out of the closet and quit pretending like, you know, like it's something we do in secret kind of thing, because we're doing it legally in legal places and that kind of stuff, and be more supportive of it. And I felt like I couldn't ask other people to do that if I hadn't done it myself, and I felt, you know, like I've got to stand up for, you know, something spiritually I believe in. And the other reason I had put the social media together was, at that time, I had been reached out to by NBC, Netflix, and a couple other studios about doing some different projects surrounding naturism and nudism. And I had to do several interviews with the studios, Zoom, and did clothed and naked interviews for some of the shows, and they all wanted B-reel stuff for all the stuff, and I had to keep grabbing the stuff from 6 years worth of stuff and getting it back out and remembering stuff. And so I finally decided just to put it all together in an account, basically, is how part of that started. And I thought, I'll just put this all here and have this on here. And so like the shoots you were particularly asking about with the Christmas stuff, that was like a creative shoot basically done. It was done privately after hours. It had consent and permission from the property owners that we did this with, and to just promote the idea of naturism is just out doing normal things everybody else does, just without clothes on, you know, in a safe setting. So there wasn't anybody around that wasn't part of the photo shoot, and it wasn't a time of day when anybody could have been around to see that kind of stuff.
I know one of the videos that got sent to us, and this is was the one on Snow Day with the kids playing outside.
Yeah.
Where was that? What was that? Was that taken inside of the house, or how was that?
Yeah, that was in my house. It's the you can't see in that window.
Okay.
So
yeah.
So I mean, it's like there's not. It's just in in a room in the house, and you can see outside, but you can't see inside. Some people had issue with that. You know, it was like
that was the first.
But yeah, I had family that was outside in that group of people outside. So yeah, so it was nobody could see out there. It's.
How has this whole ordeal taken a toll on your social life?
Well, I mean, I had been dating someone through all of this, and I'm dating someone now, and you know, it's a lot of it. It's tough to deal with a lot of the attention, and people that know me for a while who know me know like this representation of this is not who I am, and I've gotten a lot of these things wrong, but it's still tough on anybody that's in my life right now is like, oh, you're with that guy, or you're friends with that guy. I mean, because you know, and it's mostly people that don't know who I am. They just know of me. But for the most part, I mean, the girl I spend time with now, she doesn't care about any of that kind of stuff. I mean, she knows, and you know, someone doesn't know me, says certain things or whatever. You know, I mean, she's willing to stand up for me. I don't ask people to do that. I don't expect that because it's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to explain. It's a lot of this whole story. You know, a lot of people that knew me when it came out knew there was something behind it. They didn't know what was behind it. They knew like something is behind this coming out. Somebody's mad and trying to destroy him, right? You know, so they all knew there was something going on. I just didn't know who it was. Yeah. Some of them were correctly suspected who it was, but you know, I'm not out. I'm not out a lot, interacting with a lot of people, expecting everybody to just be okay with this necessarily, because they don't, what they've been told and showed is I'm sure concerning for them, but I'm also not afraid to be out and around and with people I know, because there was a time when I crawled under a rock and just kind of like, what are people thinking? Do they recognize me? Those kind of things. And you eventually get over that. It's like, who cares? These people don't know me. Like my patients would have, if I could go back to work today, my patients would all be lined up there to see me. That's it. And so at the end of the day, like it's you make your peace with this, and it's like, I don't need everybody to know who I am or what I am. And if they saw that and think see me in that light, then it's just part of it. But it's not fun. Yeah. But it's you learn to deal with it. It's just like anybody else, I guess, that gets any kind of attention for anything. It's attention is a bitter mistress, I guess. It's
yeah. This is your main focus right now, finding out with your hearing next week. But I know there have also been some other civil suits filed. One from a patient. Yeah. And then one from Rachel Chandler, right. Who was, are those things taken care of?
Yeah, I mean, the patient allegation was bogus. I mean, we knew that would happen. Somebody would jump on the bandwagon, so that's getting dealt with. And the nurse practitioner thing is a little more nebulous. I felt really betrayed by that, because the clinic is taking care of the employees to the bitter end, and to much financial detriment to myself. I borrowed money to keep things going as long as I could. And we had a potential buyer at the clinic, and that so there was a lot that went on, and they didn't suffer financially. And her dispute was over wanting to be paid for money that came in for work she did after she left, even though the contract was not set up that way. She knows that because we had other nurse practitioners there who left asking the same thing, and she had counseled me on the fact that that's not how it works. Yeah. And so I have those text messages, and I mean, it's kind of damning for her case, right? So it's like, it's just a grab, I guess. In her contract, she had a no compete clause, and of course those federally are like, so she did end up setting up a clinic in the same town that she was working for us in. She set up a clinic in Blytheville, and she took a lot of the patients that she had gotten from our clinic. So it worked out pretty good for her. Yeah. So to now have their own clinic with full of patients that used to be ours, and so to sue for something else on top of that, I thought it was just kind of tacky. I think we should win that case as well, because the contract's pretty specific. So it's just flies in the ointment at this point. So
let me ask a hard question. Is that all right?
Go ahead.
You don't look too excited about it.
I mean, it could be.
I want to play the devil's advocate for the people online that might watch, because there's going to be somebody that says there's videos of him in front of a window, people outside while he's naked. There's reference to cock and balls in the front yard.
Yeah.
And then there's the nudist thing and all that stuff. Some people are going to say that you're a pervert. What do you say?
I mean, it's so sexually. I'm not a very what's the word? I'm pretty conservative, I guess it is. So it's funny that it gets portrayed as that. Again, naturism is not a sexual thing at all, and so people that know me kind of laugh because like I've been turned into this poster child for somebody that's like out there sexually, and that's just really not my persona at all. It's just kind of funny. I'm not a very experimental person when it comes to that. So, I'm all about consent and respect, and coming from naturism, that's a big thing. I have 2 daughters of my own. I've had a lot of friends and past girlfriends, wives who have been sexually assaulted, and so like I'm a big champion of respect and consent of everyone, regardless of your sexual orientation. So to be kind of turned into this like, hey, this guy might be about this, or this could be a example of that. Like that's never been a concern with people in my life that know me. So it's unfortunate, but I also know that the people that know me know that's just anti what I am. So
you said one of the women in the video from 2019 is going to testify at your hearing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think those 3 women have to say about you, if we were to ask them?
Well, we were all friends until this came out, and I kind of distanced myself because I didn't want to be seen as like trying to influence whatever. So I just didn't want to like there to be any concerns there. Several of my family members that still were patients of ours up until we closed the clinics. So from what I've been told and what I know of them and over the years, it would be positive. I mean, there was never any negative thing from this incident or this coming out. I mean, it was just like, we've all been friends, and there's not been an issue. So I know what the one to testify is going to say because she's talked to my lawyer, and so I know what she's going to how she feels. But I'm not going to speak for the other ones after all this mess because they may have a different opinion after having gone through the publicity of it. They have to wait to the hearing.
So, Dr. Diffine, what do you want people to know about you?
Well, 2 things. One, I'm holding myself accountable for what will come out in the hearing of boundaries issues, and that boundaries is about context of how someone's connected to you, relationship-wise, with a friend, patient, colleague, all those kind of things. They get thrown into the boundaries thing, and the current trend in medicine is patients can only be just patients. They can't be friends. You can't have any association with them outside the office. It's considered a dual relationship. It's a pretty big shift from how things used to be, especially in primary care, because my whole career I've known patients in the community. It's small towns, you knew them multiple different ways. That's all considered a dual relationship now. So there's some things that we'll have to be accountable for with regard to that. And I will take accountability for the things that I did that I shouldn't have done, or that was poor choices. But I don't want people to get, and it's just because it means a lot to me, I don't want people to get naturism and anything sexual confused. I don't want that to be what everybody takes away from this. I don't really care what people think about me personally, but as far as a cause and a spiritual belief system. I don't want naturism to be tainted for, you know, what I've done. I worry more about my family, my kids, as far as how people see me, than I do about myself. But I am not I'm not an aggressive or boundary breaking person when it comes to sexual stuff. I'm big about consent and those kind of things, and I think that'll all come out. People will think what they want, but I know that I am not someone who's going to, you know, personally violate the rights of others in any kind of sexual way. And you know, I'm comfortable with that, and everybody in my life knows that about me. And again, whether people will understand that, believe that, or after seeing that video think something different, that's fine. But it's just not who I am.